So this fall, I went out and picked up probably about 100 pounds of acorns. I think I did that in October. Picked up about 50 pounds of white oak acorns, and then another 50 pounds of red oak acorns. And it's interesting to see the differences in processing between those and all the other differences associated with that. Um, that was in October. It's February now. I'm just working through the last of these, the acorns and the processing them into flour. So this, I think, is about the 10th batch I've done on those. And yeah, it's been a real interesting process and learning experience. Certainly the acorns are a lot more dry now. I've got about 9.5 pounds or 10 pounds of these white oaks left, and you can actually hear them rattle in their shell now because they're so dry by just hanging out over the winter, more or less. And they're much drier than they were when I picked them up off the ground. The way I store them is basically I'll put them in like a laundry mesh bag, and I'll keep those inside. I was keeping them out in the garage, but the squirrels, pine squirrels, chipmunks, everything else were sure interested in them. So learned that pretty quick, and then I was storing them in the basement in those mesh bags. But the primary purpose of this video is the cracking process, which I want to show you. And I think that's probably about the funnest process, at least for me anyways. But there's a lot of different ways to crack these things. I'll show you what I do. I actually built a mechanized and motorized nut cracker. Actually, I built it for black walnuts, but it works pretty well for acorns too. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll run some nuts through there and show you that process. So this is what the cracker looks like. It's pretty big and heavy. It's operated on, I think this is a 3/4 horsepower electric motor. It's driving basically a gear on a chain, and then there's a jack shaft back here to modify the speed. I think this is maybe a 1750 RPM motor, and final RPM is maybe 300 or 400 RPM on the cracker itself. And the cracker guts inside here, it's basically a rotating cylinder or a rotating hammer that spins, and the nuts go into this spot down here, and this space or gap between here is adjusted with this screw in the back. And basically you adjust that so the acorns don't fit through there, and so they're sitting in there, and then when this thing spins, there's this 1/4-inch bar on here that's riding on this shaft, and when this comes around, it basically smashes them through there. And they end up going down a chute, and they end up in this bucket. And this is what it looks like after they've been run through the cracker. You know, the shells and the meats are basically, especially because they're so dry, they're separated and falling apart, and that makes certainly the separation process more easy. But this thing is pretty speedy. It's also loud, but I'll show you it running. It does work really well for black walnuts too. And can't really complain. I haven't really found anything that stops this thing. So you also have to be careful. You don't want to get stuck in there either. But it's got I built a hopper for it, so you stick that on top, and we can load that baby up with nuts, and I'll run it for you. I like to run it off a foot switch, so it makes it a lot easier to operate and keep your hands free. So we'll run I don't know, a bowl of nuts through there and see what that looks like, and how fast that goes. But this thing will do, I don't know, tens of pounds an hour easily. So we'll show you what that looks like, and then after the cracking, we'll move on to sorting and screening. So here we go. It is a little loud. Okay, so you can see it chugged through those pretty quickly, and it does a really good job of cracking these things out, especially when they're dry like that. And like I said, it works well for black walnuts too, but does a good job. It's heavy. Took a while to build, but it's worked out really well. Next one is going to be on screening and sorting. Stay tuned.